सर सर झालं जॉईन. येस रोल 24.
नमस्ते सर, आवाज येतोय?
हाँ
हाँ,
हाँ, शुरू करा मैडम।
हो सर. नमस्ते. मैं डॉक्टर शीला महादुबले, मेरा रोल नंबर 24 है. आज हमारे बीच एक ऐसे विद्वान उपस्थित है जिनका शैक्षणिक योगदान और शोध कार्य शिक्षा जगत के लिए प्रेरणा स्रोत रहा है. इनका अकादमिक जीवन केवल उपलब्धियों की सूची नहीं बल्कि सतत साधना, शोध निष्ठा और ज्ञान समर्पण की उज्जवल यात्रा है. शिक्षण और शोध के क्षेत्र में इनकी प्रतिबद्धता तथा उत्कृष्टता इन्हें विशिष्ट पहचान प्रदान करती है. इनका व्यक्तित्व, अनुभव, विद्वत्ता और विनम्रता का सुंदर समन्वय है. आज हमारे इस सत्र के वक्ता प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर आनंद कुमार शिवाजीराव उबाळे सर जी का संक्षिप्त परिचय आपके सामने प्रस्तुत करती हूँ. प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर आनंद कुमार शिवाजीराव उबाळे, MA सेट PhD, अंग्रेजी विभाग, डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर मराठवाडा विश्वविद्यालय, छत्रपति संभाजीनगर, महाराष्ट्र. इनका PhD का विषय है ज्योतिराव फुले और कार्ल मार्क्स, सांस्कृतिक पुनर्निर्माण का एक वैचारिक अध्ययन. इनका शिक्षा का अनुभव है 22 वर्ष. इनके रुचि का क्षेत्र है आलोचनात्मक सिद्धांत, सांस्कृतिक अध्ययन, साहित्य, मनोविज्ञान एवं मनोविश्लेषण, साहित्य और दर्शन, धर्म एवं संस्कृति. इनका कार्य अनुभव है महाराष्ट्र शासन द्वारा गठित शास्त्रीय मराठी भाषा समिति, अभिजात मराठी भाषा समिति के सदस्य के रूप में इन्होंने कार्य किया है. वर्तमान रूप में इन्होंने महाराष्ट्र शासन की महात्मा फुले स्रोत सामग्री प्रकाशन समिति के सदस्य के रूप में अभी कार्यरत है. हमें पूर्ण विश्वास है कि आपका यह व्याख्यान हम सभी प्रतिभागियों के लिए ज्ञानवर्धक और प्रेरणादायी सिद्ध होगा. आपका मार्गदर्शन हमारे लिए अमूल्य है और हम आपके विचारों को सुनने के लिए उत्सुक है. मैं आदरपूर्वक आपको आमंत्रित करती हूँ कि आप अपने विचारों से हमें समृद्ध करें. धन्यवाद सर.
थैंक यू मैडम। Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Then shall we start?
Okay, Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Uh, at the outset, let me thank the HRDC of our university, the director and the course coordinator. At the same time, let me thank Madam who introduced me, and I am happy to know that as she said at the end of her introduction, that all of you are very much eager to listen to me. And I don't have any doubt about this. I certainly believe that you people are really interested in my talk. Let me clarify one thing at the very beginning. That though I have been told by the course coordinator, Dr. Mustajib Khan, that I am supposed to speak in at least 2 languages. But my limitation is there, and it's not possible to switch to the other language. So I have decided to prefer to speak in English. And I am very poor in Hindi, basically. So it would not be, or I would not be able to communicate in a proper way in Hindi. Therefore, I have decided to speak in English only. I feel extremely sorry for this because I know there are certain members, the participants in this course, for them, the speech in entire English would be little inconvenient, but I feel that they will try to understand, and if at all they find any problem, they can ask me. Means if you come across certain concept, certain notion, certain terminology, then you can ask me to explain that, and I'll try to explain that in simple English. Basically, I would not be speaking in so jargonized English, and I'll be trying to use the simple terms and to explain those terms. Of course, those terms which are inevitable will be used as they are, but I'll try to explain those terms in simple English. And I have experienced up to now, as I have delivered so many lectures in this sort of courses, I have experienced that even the uh, participants, though they are not very good in English, they also understand uh, my speech. This is my experience because normally I speak in very simple English. Yeah, let's start. I think you have been conveyed my topic, that is understanding cultural studies. I hope that up to now you have not heard any speech, any talk on cultural studies. I hope, I'm not sure. I don't know. There may be some speaker who might have talked on cultural studies, but still, if anybody has talked on this topic, but still, I'll be talking on this topic with some other aspects. If no one has talked on this topic, then this would be a kind of important thing on your part to experience this talk. Another thing I must speak about is that normally what happens in this kind of online lectures, the participants don't seem to be serious. This is not in case of all the participants I know, but many times it happens that very casual approach is adopted by the participants. So I request all of you and I appeal that you should listen very seriously. And in the end of this talk, if at all you have any query, any doubt, or any question, you can ask me. The last 30 minutes or 20 minutes of this lecture would be devoted for question answer, I believe. Through those question answers, it would be possible to explore some other and missing aspects of my talk. So you be prepared for that question answer session in the end of this talk. Okay. And for that, you need to listen to this lecture very seriously and carefully. Friends, cultural studies is comparatively a recent phenomena. It is a new discipline compared to the other traditional prevalent disciplines. This discipline emerged in 60s, particularly in Britain. Before that also, there was a study of culture, no doubt. But that study of culture was a traditional kind of study. Means in literature, there was a study of culture, but with a specific perspective, culture was studied. In sociology also, there was a study of culture. In anthropology, there is a study of culture. In sociology, in economics, in political science, the study of culture is there. Means some aspects of culture were studied in and have been studied in these disciplines in traditional sense, we can say. Then if culture was being studied already traditionally, then was it necessary to start and initiate an independent discipline of cultural studies? This is a crucial question. Was it really necessary? And if it is necessary, or if it was necessary at the time, then which aspects were responsible for initiating this kind of study of culture? And is there any difference between the study of culture and cultural studies? These things are important to be discussed here. There is so important difference between the traditional kind of the study of culture, or culture study we may say, and cultural studies. There is a difference. First of all, we will try to understand this difference and then we will proceed. In 60s, certain people came together like Richard Hogarth or E.M. Thompson, E.P. Thompson, or Raymond Williams, or Tony Bennett, okay. And these people started this discipline or independent discipline of study. Actually, all these thinkers or people were belonging to the working class, and they found that, please turn off your mic. Please turn off your mic. Yeah. These people started to think about culture in a different way. They found that while studying in Oxford University, particularly Raymond Williams, found that there is no reflection of his life, working class life, in the traditional syllabus of cultural studies. And therefore, he thought that there should be the reflection of the life of the common people, the working class people, the ordinary people, the masses. And therefore, these people started this discipline. Actually, so far as the origin of this discipline is concerned, and the historical background of this discipline is concerned, an independent discussion is possible. But I have decided to introduce this discipline only. Okay, I will not be going in detail of all the aspects of this discipline. I'll be just talking about the introduction of this discipline. Means I'll be introducing the major arguments of this discipline, okay, and how this discipline is important in the study of social sciences and literature. Okay, how this study or this discipline is relevant and necessary in contemporary time so far as social studies and literary studies are concerned. So this will be my concern. Means I have restricted myself in this talk. Okay, so this discipline of cultural studies particularly started the institutional study of culture, and this is the difference between traditional study of culture and cultural studies as an independent discipline. Okay, institutionalized study of culture, and the concerns of this cultural studies as a discipline were absolutely different from the traditional concerns of the study of culture. Means if you look at the study of culture in anthropology, you will find that the tribal life, the evolutionary aspects, okay, the development of human societies, the various rituals, the traditions and customs of a particular community, okay, various art forms, these kind of things were studied in anthropology, you can see. Particularly, if you look at the evolutionary anthropology, you will find that how various tribes have been living their life. These kind of things have been studied in anthropological study of culture. But it means culture is visited with this kind of perspective by anthropology. In sociology also, you can see there is a study of culture in a different perspective again. And in everyday life also, we use the term culture in a specific way. Means you can see that in a very loose sense, in a very, very rough sense, everybody uses this term culture. Okay. So considering all these traditional uses and traditional studies of culture, the pioneers of the discipline of cultural studies found that the major aspects of culture are still missing in the traditional kind of study of culture. And they started to talk about these new aspects, which we are going to discuss in this talk. Particularly, if you look at the traditional perspective on culture or the traditional notion of culture, you will find that culture means that certain phenomena which is associated with a specific class in the society. Means a reading of classics, okay, a certain kind of habits, certain kind of customs, certain kind of rituals, certain kind of functions, ceremonies, certain kind of food habits, certain kind of clothes, okay, certain kind of sports, all these things, music, dance, drama, paintings, okay, traditionally all these things which has a specific kind of respectability in the society. These things are considered as culture. Means used to be called or considered as culture in traditional sense. Up to 19th century, you can see in Europe, only a specific class, or you can say as elite class, was supposed to be a cultured class up to 19th century. The very notion of culture was not at all associated with the working class or the masses. The very notion of culture was associated with the aristocratic class or the elite class. Okay. Means the elite class in Europe particularly, that class that has a specific kind of taste in literature. Okay. Means that class reads specific classics, renowned classics in that language. That may be any language, we may say, English, French, or the antique languages like Latin, Greek. Reading the classics means only a specific class used to read this kind of books, this kind of classics, or reading Shakespeare. A person who reads Shakespeare in European community I'm talking about, or a person who keeps the classics of Shakespeare in his study room, a drawing room, whether he reads or not those books, that's a different story. But when you enter his drawing room and you find that the classics of Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet and King Lear and Macbeth and all the classics and the classics of other writers, poets, placed in the drawing room or the study, it was a kind of a show off on the part of, means that was the fashion at that time in 18th century particularly. That was the fashion to keep all these books classics in the drawing room or in library to make a show off. Many people used to read, but reading this kind of classic was associated with culture. A person is called as a cultured person means there are certain parameters to declare somebody as a cultured person. He must be, and this is applicable to community. Any community can be called or considered as cultured community means that community observes and follows and fulfills certain norms, certain parameters. What are those parameters? Those parameters are that community or that person must be reading these classics and must be having those classics in his home. That person must have a specific kind of refined taste of music. Okay, that person must have a specific kind of taste of paintings, dance, drama, in clothes. A specific kind of taste should be there of a person or community. Then that person or that community can be called as cultured community or cultured person. Means those norms were there. In Indian context also, you can see a specific class is called, and still we can come across this kind of people who have a specific kind of taste. In Marathi, it can be called as abhiruchi. Okay, a specific kind of abhiruchi, taste, is associated with a certain class, certain person. Okay, so this was the important norm of being called as a cultured person, right? So up to 19th century, the very term culture was associated with a specific community. Okay, masses were believed to be uncultured. They might have their own books produced by them. Masses, you understand, masses, the majority of the people, working class people, commoners, means masses. I'll be using this term. Those masses don't have any kind of taste. Their choice and taste of music is vulgar, okay, or that is not respectable. They produce, means masses produce the music, songs, but those songs and music cannot be counted as culture. Okay, those masses produce the paintings, but those paintings cannot be counted as culture. Those masses have specific kind of rituals, ceremonies and festivals, but those festivals cannot be called as culture, cannot be considered as culture. The very notion of culture was absolutely restricted up to the 19th century, we may say. It was absolutely restricted to a specific class. Okay, right. And this was understood by these people, as I mentioned, Raymond Williams, Richard Hogarth, E.P. Thompson, Tony Bennett, okay, and Stuart Hall. Stuart Hall is very important figure. And these people started one institution. That institution, the name of that institution is very important. Birmingham Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies, BCCCS. Birmingham Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies. This institution was established, founded by these people, and they started a systematic and disciplined study of culture. Okay, this is not the traditional kind of study of culture, which declared the aristocratic and elite culture as culture and which did not count and consider the culture of masses as culture, right? So this institutionalized study started by these people seriously thought about the culture of masses, the Bahujan's culture, you may say in Marathi. They started taking seriously about the songs, music, paintings, drama, dance, food habits, sports, okay, and other aspects of the masses. And a systematic study of these things have been started by this institution in 60s, you understand. And in this way, how the cultural studies as an independent discipline started. Okay. The key concerns or the major concerns of this institutionalized study of culture were not just talking about the aesthetic realms of the culture. Okay. Not just talking about the aesthetic aspects of these cultural artifacts. Means traditionally what happens, as I said in the beginning, that the very notion of culture is associated with taste, abhiruchi. That's a very important thing. This taste is actually a result of a kind of indoctrination. Development of taste or development of abhiruchi is the result of a specific kind of sociological and psychological conditioning of mind. How your mind is conditioned, how you are brought up in a specific kind of society. This aspect determines your aesthetic sense, your taste, right? And this taste is declared whether it is superior or inferior, right? Culture is determined on the basis of taste. Therefore, the culture of masses is normally declared as inferior, vulgar, poor, stupid, nonsense by the elites. In all the communities of the world, it happened. In Europe also the same happened. The working class culture or the culture of masses was considered as uncultured or nonsense. In Indian context also you can see there is a specific class in our society that enjoys the classical music, Most of the commoners or masses don't know what is classical music, right? We are familiar with so many names in classical music. You can tell, like the great singers like Kishori Amonkar or Arti Anklikar or so many people you can see who sing classical songs, classical ragas and ragdari, you might have heard, right? But tell me, how many people enjoy this kind of classical music? Most of the people cannot understand even that music, right? See, you don't or we don't enjoy classical music because we are not trained in that particular realm. We are not trained, or our minds or our taste is not groomed in that particular way. Therefore, we don't understand that. And therefore, we don't enjoy that music. We don't enjoy means most of the people, commoners, masses, don't enjoy that classical music. Enjoyment of classical music depends upon understanding of that certain thing. Unless and until you understand that, you don't enjoy that. How can you enjoy that if you don't understand that? Right? Enjoyment depends upon understanding of that certain thing. The same happens about literature. How many people read the classics? Speaking in Indian context. But see, certain literature, certain music is respected. Means, a particular class listens to classical music and ghazals. Okay. Most of the commoners don't listen to ghazals because they don't understand and therefore they don't enjoy, right? So the genre or the form of music, that is ghazal or classical songs, classical music, these genres are also associated with a particular class which is respected. A class elite particularly is respected. Therefore, the associated things, associated cultural artifacts of that class are also equally respected. You understand? Ghazal is respected because it is enjoyed and it is associated with a specific class, right? Classical music is respected because it is associated with a specific class. Okay. On the contrary, you can see, if you think of Marathi music, I believe that most of the participants are from Maharashtra, so they understand. And even the participants from other states will also understand, will be knowing what I'm talking about. See, in Maharashtra particularly, there is a very, very popular form of songs and dance and music, that is Launi. Very popular. But do you know that Launi is not at all respected? This is the fact. Launi is not respected. Launi is not revered. It is something considered as something vulgar, right? Something unimportant. Something that is relegated actually to unculture, we may say, right? If you compare Ghazal with Launi, you can tell and you can understand what form is respected, whether Ghazal is respected or classical songs, we may say. Whether those classical songs are respected or Launi is respected. You know very well. Launi is not respected, though it is enjoyed by most of the people, right? Speaking about the European culture, as the cultural studies thinkers have pointed out, that Shakespeare is respected because, yes, Shakespeare is truly a great dramatist, no doubt at all. But you can see around the image of Shakespeare, there are certain attributes, like Shakespeare's works are timeless, means the quality of permanence is associated and attached with the name of Shakespeare and his works. Permanence, timeless. At the same time, you can see Shakespeare's works are considered as universal. Those works have universal values. The teacher participants who belong to Marathi literature and Marathi language, they are also told about the universality of Shakespeare, right? They also have some knowledge of Shakespearean dramas, particularly tragedies, right? And they also have been continuously told that Shakespeare has the quality of permanence and universal values are there in his work. Okay. So Shakespeare is respected. Okay. If you compare Shakespeare with if you think of the recent writers like J.K. Rowling, you know, all of you know, Harry Potter, the writer of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling, though read by many people, children and so many kind of people of various age groups, but J.K. Rowling is not comparatively respected, we may say. Or you can say Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie is not respected compared to Shakespeare or John Milton or John Donne. Okay. Shakespeare is taught in the universities and colleges. Shakespeare becomes the part of syllabus. But Agatha Christie doesn't become the part of syllabus. Or J.K. Rowling is not yet the part of syllabus. Okay. So this is the matter of respect and reverence. So the pioneers and the founders of the discipline of cultural studies found that and understood that certain figures in literature are respected, though those figures are not read by all the people. They are read by or they are enjoyed by a minority, but that minority is wealthy minority. Those are the elite in that particular nation, in that particular community. So Shakespeare is understood, enjoyed, and other people. Shakespeare, I'm taking this name as example only, as representative of those writers, those dramatists. But Agatha Christie and J.K. Rowling, this kind of writers are not enjoyed, or those are not prescribed for syllabus because they are not respected according to the norms established by the traditional culture. Okay. According to traditional culture, certain norms are there. According to those norms, according to those parameters, certain figures need to be respected, certain art forms need to be respected, and certain art forms should not be respected, or they should not be even counted as art forms. You're getting this point? So, Agatha Christie is not prescribed for the syllabus. Shakespeare is prescribed in the syllabus because he is respected. Agatha Christie is not respected, though she is read by most of the people. J.K. Rowling is read by many people, most of the people, but still she is not the part of syllabus. When we talk about Marathi literature, you will find that a specific kind of figures repeatedly appear in syllabus. And those figures, writers, dramatists, okay, are respected, revered. And certain writers are, though read by many people in the society, those writers are never part of syllabus of university or college, right? So far as English is concerned, as I told you, that certain writers are never part of the syllabus. You can see in recent time also certain novelists are declared as popular novelists and they don't become part of university syllabus. Okay. So the cultural productions or cultural texts which are enjoyed by the commoners, the masses, the majority, okay, those cultural products or cultural texts are normally not respected. Okay, this is found by the founders of this institution of cultural studies. Okay, and they declared that the cultural products or cultural artifacts or cultural texts are also equally important, which are produced by the common people or the masses. And they declared that the cultural production of the masses is called as popular culture. So the term popular culture is very, very important in the discipline of cultural studies. I believe you are getting what I'm talking. Okay. See, normally you say that something unimportant you want to say, you want to suggest. For example, novels. Some writer you declare as he is a popular novelist. Okay. You might have heard about Chetan Bhagat. Chetan Bhagat is declared as popular novelist. Some people have worked on him as popular fiction. Okay. Certain poems as popular poems, certain musical performances as popular musical performances, as you have seen, rock music or rap, okay, or pop music or pop songs. Okay. Actually, this pop comes from popular. Basically, that is popular culture, popular music, popular songs, popular writing. Okay. The short form is pop, pop music, pop culture. Okay. So this pop culture, pop music, pop writing, okay, or popular everything means that is popular amongst the masses. Okay. Enjoyed by the common people, working people, ordinary people. And the founders of cultural studies as institution, they declared that there should be a serious study of this popular culture as well, along with the traditional kind of culture. This is also a culture and this needs to be studied systematically in a disciplined way, and therefore they started this institution at Birmingham. Therefore, the name Birmingham Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies. Okay. And they started this study of popular culture. See, the upper classes in the society, if you talk in Indian context, you can see that if you think of movies, you know, what kind of movies are considered as the great movies or classics, we can say. For example, the movies of Satyajit Ray. You might have watched those movies, Pather Panchali and other movies by Satyajit Ray. Yes, Satyajit Ray is an iconic filmmaker in Indian history of cinema, no doubt. But see, the respect and reverence attached and associated with the name of Satyajit Ray, this respect is not found with the other producers and directors who are from the common classes, okay, or the masses, you can say. Means, though the movies produced by those directors are enjoyed and watched by most of the people. For example, you can see the movies of Manmohan Desai, the movies like Sholay, the movies like the movies of David Dhawan, okay, or even Karan Johar, okay. This kind of movies which are enjoyed by the common people, the movies of Govinda and Mithun Chakraborty in earlier times, okay. I belong to that generation, therefore I took their names. I don't know the recent artists, recent people in movies particularly. But my point is that certain movies are enjoyed by the masses, okay, and those movies are not counted as classics. But the movies which, like the movies of Satyajit Ray, or the movies, other movies like the movies of Shyam Benegal, okay, or there are so many important film directors. Those are declared as classics. But let me tell you, those movies are not watched by the common people, even not understood by the common people or masses. Okay, those are watched and understood and enjoyed by a specific class. Okay, that class boasts of a refined taste, a superior taste, that is Abhiruchi, I told you. Okay, so they declared the classics to these movies, okay, literary works or music or the festivals even, or the food. See, there is a difference. The food of the common people, masses, okay, and the food of the elite. So the food of elite is respected, revered, and the food consumed by the masses is never respected. Okay. Everything that belongs to masses was never respected and is never respected, and that is counted as unculture. Okay. So this discipline of cultural studies started to deliberately study the culture of the masses, to which they called as popular culture. So they studied all the aspects of popular culture and they brought the life of the masses, okay, as a as the aspect of the study. Okay, otherwise that culture was never accepted as culture. Okay. Cultural studies is not just concerned with the cultural products or cultural artifacts. That must be understood. And this is again the difference between the disciplined cultural studies and the traditional study of culture. Cultural studies looks at culture as the process of meaning making or the signification. This is important argument that has been propounded by cultural studies thinkers, and that must be understood. Okay. What is culture for cultural studies? It is not just rites and rituals, ceremonies and functions, or the dance, drama, literature, songs. This is not just culture. Culture basically is, and cultural studies argues, that culture is about the meanings a community generates. Understand? Culture is about the meanings a community generates. Means every community, every society generates certain meanings, okay, through cultural products. Means you can understand every cultural product has some sort of message, some sort of uh, meaning that is propounded, that is disseminated by that cultural product. For example, you can see the festivals. Every festival in every culture, you can see festival is a cultural product. Okay, that cultural product, okay, has some sort of meaning that indicates something, that suggests something, that symbolizes something. You understand? Therefore, cultural studies believes that culture is not just traditional kind of things, customs and traditions, as we believe traditionally, but culture is the process of meaning making. It produces meanings. Okay. Every cultural artifact, every cultural text, every cultural product gives some sort of meaning. That meaning is important here. Okay. So culture is all about propounding meanings, okay, or giving meanings. So the founders of cultural studies as a discipline declared that popular culture, which was the very, very important aspect in this discipline, popular culture, they declared, is the set of practices. What is popular culture? It is a set of practices, artifacts, and beliefs shared by the masses. Popular culture is not shared by the elite. Rather, popular culture is what we can say condemned, okay, or declared as foolish or declared as nonsense by the elite, okay. But this popular culture is shared by masses. Means what is popular culture? The culture that is shared by, widely shared by masses, that is popular culture, and is constituted by the everyday life of the masses. Means in everyday life, you share these cultural artifacts, cultural texts, cultural products, and that is widespread. That is part of your everyday life. Okay. Those aspects are, for example, food habits, fashion, forms of transport, the music, the reading habits, okay, the spaces they occupy and traverse. All these aspects are shared every day by the masses. This is called popular culture. Okay. I must suggest very important essay by Raymond Williams in this connection. Okay. Raymond Williams wrote an essay. The title of that essay is Culture is Ordinary. Okay. This essay actually worked as the foundational essay of the discipline of cultural studies. Okay. In this essay, Raymond Williams talks about the culture of masses, and he goes beyond the traditional definition of culture. Okay. Culture for Raymond Williams is not the cultural products or cultural texts of the elite only. Okay. But the happenings in everyday life of the common people, of the masses, that is culture. Okay. He declares culture is ordinary. See, the title of this essay itself is Culture is Ordinary. But it doesn't mean that it is ordinary in traditional sense. Ordinary means, normally we use this word ordinary for something unimportant. Something unimportant is there, then we say, no, this is not so important. It is an ordinary thing. But Raymond Williams is not using this term in that traditional sense. He wants to say that ordinary means usual, common, which is used commonly, used daily, every day by all the people, shared by all the people. Means everything that is shared by common people, masses. Okay, that is ordinary. Means something becomes ordinary, means that becomes usual for all the people. So culture is Ordinary means usual for these people. Okay. What or which things are incorporated in this concept of ordinariness? Okay. Culture means not something very elevated, something very refined, something divine, something extraordinary, something extraordinary, as I said, which is traditionally considered. Culture means everyday activities of human being or masses, we may say, or people in any society. Everyday activities. Two things are there which have been discussed by Raymond Williams while defining the notion of culture. He says that the known meanings and the unknown meanings, or the experiments, the comparisons through observations. This is how he tries to define the notion of culture in that particular context. The known meanings, means the traditional meanings of the things, okay, and the new meanings are the unknown meanings which are derived through observations, through experiments, through comparisons of certain things. And out of those comparisons and observations, there are the possibilities of creation of some other new expressions and new meanings. Okay. So therefore, I told you, culture is meaning making, generating meanings. Okay. It's a process of signification. It's a signifying practice. Okay. Culture is not in a traditional sense, or the people of cultural studies did not look at culture, the very notion of culture, in traditional sense. They feel that culture shapes the life of a society, or shapes the society, reshapes it, and this process of shaping and reshaping of the society is continuous. Understand? The process of shaping and reshaping of the society is a continuous process. This is culture, according to these people of Birmingham Center of Contemporary Cultural Studies. Okay. Now, the other very important aspect of cultural studies, or major concern or key concern of cultural studies, is culture is, as I said in the beginning, not just associated with the aesthetic realms. It is not just associated with the tradition and customs, but cultural studies specifically focuses on the power relations within the society, power relations and power structures. Okay. This is the distinctiveness of this institutionalized study of culture. Okay. The discipline of cultural studies focuses on the power structures and power relations in the or within the society. Okay. It believes that culture is never a neutral phenomena. Okay. Culture, we believe that it must be a neutral, objective, natural, but cultural studies believe that it is never a neutral phenomena. It is actually, it is having certain connotations, intentions. Okay. It impacts, it influences, it controls, it regulates the society. Okay. Therefore, it is never neutral. At the same time, culture is not natural. It is always produced. You understand? Normally, what happens? We believe that you just go in your past and you just remember those childhood days, particularly when we were students, school students particularly. We used to believe that our festivals are natural, and we used to wait for those festivals, right? Like Diwali or other festivals. We felt that these are already established festivals, means already means these are natural things, natural festivals. Okay. But cultural studies believes that culture is never natural. It is produced. It is created. Okay, it is not natural, but we believe that culture is natural. Now see what happens. This belief that we consider culture as natural, this belief is always created and maintained, okay, by the producers of cultural artifacts or cultural texts, right? Through culture, certain ideologies are disseminated, you understand? Through cultural products, we can say, certain ideology is disseminated. That ideology is important to condition the minds of the people. Conditioning of mind is so important here. See, this conditioning of mind is termed by anthropology as acculturation. Acculturation. The same phenomena is defined by sociology as socialization. I'm talking about conditioning of mind, how our minds are shaped or conditioned. In sociology, this process is called as socialization. Okay. In psychology, it is called as conditioning, psychological conditioning. Okay. This conditioning is so important. Every community, every society has certain rules, certain norms, certain ways, okay, certain, we can say, orientations to condition the minds of the members of that community. So every person belonging to a particular community thinks in a specific way. Every member of a particular community receives the things in a specific way, in a determined specific format and way. Okay, because his mind or her mind is conditioned because he is born and brought up in that particular community. Therefore, that person thinks in that way. Our perception of the world, of the universe, of the things around us, that perception is determined, shaped and designed and formulated by certain abstract things which become or which are the part or inevitable part of our culture. Through certain cultural artifacts and through certain cultural texts, okay, this process of shaping of minds takes place. We need to understand that. Okay, so I was talking about this acculturation, socialization, okay, and psychological conditioning. Okay, so this is important in order to inculcate a specific kind of ideology. Okay, inculcation of certain ideology through cultural products. Getting. So this is the role of culture. Culture is never natural. It is produced, and culture grooms the person. It conditions the person or a member of any society in a determined and specific way. You understand? Therefore, you can see a member of a particular society thinks in a specific way, believes in a specific way, understands in a specific way, communicates in a specific way, okay, observes the thing in a specific way because he has been trained. Conditioning means it's a kind of training. He has been trained, he has been conditioned in a specific way through certain cultural products, through certain cultural texts, okay. And through these cultural texts, we receive certain, we can say, our positions, ideological positions. We also acquire certain viewpoints or insights and outlooks as well. We decide our concerns, okay. we look at the world according to our cultural texts or according to the ideology that has been involved in our cultural text. I think it is becoming a little bit complicated, I know. I'll try to clarify, I'll try to explain these things because I am gradually entering into the theoretical realms because cultural studies heavily draws upon various kinds of sociological, literary, and critical theories, particularly. By accumulating certain inputs from various disciplines, particularly critical theories and literary theories and sociological theories, cultural studies propounds its own arguments. The arguments established by cultural studies are actually not the arguments of cultural studies as such. Those arguments are actually borrowed arguments and appropriated by cultural studies according to its scheme. Understand? So, I'm entering in to the theories now, so it would be a little difficult to understand for particularly those participants who don't belong to English studies. But I'll try to simplify these things. My point was the cultural artifacts or cultural texts are the means or the instruments, tools of disseminating certain ideology. That ideology is the ideology of domination. You understand? Means a certain class in the society dominates the majority of the people, okay? But this domination should be maintained. If that class doesn't maintain the domination, okay, then that class will no more be a dominant class in that society. So, in order to maintain the domination, that dominant class or elite, we may say, acquire various scholarly strategies, and those strategies are disseminated or executed through cultural texts, cultural artifacts. Okay. That ideology of domination is propounded through certain cultural texts. We will think about certain TV serials. Then you will probably understand my point. You can see the TV serials nowadays. Marathi people know, and even the people belonging to other languages. I have seen that many serials are translated in various Indian languages. The same serials are repeated in translated form. Okay. The same serials means I can say that a Maharashtrian person watches the same kind of serials and a Tamil person may be watching the same kind of serials so far as themes are concerned. Okay. Language may be different, but a same kind of thematic material, we may say, is presented to those people. You look at the TV serials, you will find a specific kind of hero, heroine, a family, okay? A typical structure is that. You know everything, means what is going to happen in next episode. You know very well, but still you are glued to TV. You continue watching that episode. Our, particularly our women, okay, they are very much eager to know what will happen in the next episode. So they are waiting for those episodes. We have experience in everybody's house near about it happens, right? But we fail to understand that these TV serials are, in a way, ideological instruments. These TV serials are ideological instruments which control the society, which control the psyche of the people. You're getting my point. Serials, movies, advertisements, okay. And in recent time, you can see on social media, particularly certain reels, okay. These kind of things, these are the cultural products. These are cultural texts. And these cultural products are projected by a specific kind of class to shape and reshape or to mold our perspectives, mold our attitudes, and in that way, they want to control the society. They want to regulate the society. Understand? Therefore, cultural studies believes that all these cultural artifacts which have been produced by a dominant class, which have been projected, disseminated by the dominant class, these cultural artifacts and these cultural products are associated with economics. You understand? Means you just look at the TV serials. Who produces the TV serials? Who watches those TV serials? You just ask these questions. And cultural studies has been asking these questions to all the cultural products. Who creates or produces the TV serials? Who watches those TV serials? Who is benefited with those TV serials? Okay, through advertisement and through other things. Who is benefited? And what is the overall impact of TV serials on the life of ordinary people? All these questions are explored by cultural studies, or this is one of the prime concerns of cultural studies. Therefore, I said cultural studies is primarily associated with power structure, power relations. Okay. If you look at a particular literary text, that may be in Marathi, in English, in Hindi, in any language, you think of any literary text. See, our strategies of criticism, we have been trained in a certain way in our university classes, in our college classes, when we used to attend those classes of literature. So far as the criticism of a cultural text or a literary text is concerned, our professor used to tell that in order to analyze this literary text, you have to use these parameters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. These are the parameters of the analysis of this literary text. Okay. And on the basis of those parameters, we used to analyze that text. That was considered as criticism of the text. Okay. Then various or multiple approaches were taught to us by our professors, right? For example, feminist analysis of a literary text, or Marxist analysis of a literary text, post-colonial analysis of a literary text. So many kinds of approaches were taught to us, okay? But see, we forgot to think a literary text beyond its thematic concerns. We always considered literary text in terms of its characters, themes, plots, subplots, setting, okay? We never thought beyond these aspects of a literary text. And cultural studies primarily focuses on these aspects. Cultural studies doesn't look at a literary text only as a literary product, only as a literary text. It believes that, means cultural studies believes that a literary text is having multiple aspects. For example, the background of the writer, okay, the socio-cultural background of the author, okay, to whom or to which class that author belongs and represents, okay. At the same time, who has published that book, okay, the publishing agency, publishing industry, who or which aspects are behind the production of that book or that literary text, okay, who is distributing that literary text, and who will be reading that literary text. Okay. Then who will be benefited with that literary text? Means after selling of that literary text, who will be benefited? Right? Of course, the publishing company. Okay. All these aspects are taken into consideration by cultural studies. It is not just concerned with, in a traditional sense, it is not just concerned with the themes and the characters and other aspects of a literary text. It thinks about so many things which are associated and which are around a literary text. Okay, so here literary text is not just a literary text, but it is an enterprise. It is a business, and the whole business of the production of literary text is taken into consideration by cultural studies. Okay, so the viewpoint of cultural studies, because as I said, cultural studies looks at culture, not just the ceremonies and festivals and traditions and customs, but it thinks in terms of power structure and power relations. Okay, see, for a long time, you might have experienced that the tribal arts or tribal paintings were not paid adequate attention for a long time. But in recent time, you can see the tribal art, tribal paintings particularly, Warli painting and other paintings, we are familiar with that. These paintings and these artworks produced by tribals, these artworks and paintings are gaining popularity because they are glorified. Okay. And you can see in metropolises, in the metro cities, there are the exhibitions of tribal arts, tribal artifacts, okay, tribal paintings, right? You can see exhibitions. And again, you can see a specific class comes there, and that class organizes this kind of exhibitions, okay? And they enjoy those paintings. They purchase those paintings, right? Why did it happen? This is question. For a long time, tribal art, tribal uh, paintings, these things were not paid adequate attention. But in recent time, these things are glorified. These things are taken very seriously by a specific class. Okay. Cultural studies, if you look at this entire phenomena related to tribal art and tribal culture and tribal paintings, if you look at it with a cultural studies point of view, you will find that, or you will be asking certain questions. Who are those classes or the people who organize this kind of exhibitions of tribal arts or tribal paintings, and who are benefited with this? Okay, means again, the economic aspect of the entire cultural production or entire process of cultural production, we may say. This entire enterprise is taken into consideration, and you can see that economics plays a vital role in the entire phenomena, you can see. So who is benefited with these tribal art, tribal exhibitions, we may say? This is explored by cultural studies. Okay. Then, yeah. Now, we will be talking about, as I said, what kind of methods, okay, are used by cultural studies. The methods and methodologies. Okay. The people who are working on their PhD, or the people who are interested in research, okay, those people know there is a difference between methods and methodologies. Okay. And with the perspective of cultural studies, what sort of methods are used by cultural studies as a discipline, and what sort of methodologies are used by cultural studies. This is very important aspect. I'll be talking within 5 minutes only. I'll be talking about the difference between methods and methodology. Okay, the major aspects of method and methodology, and then we will have a break of 15 minutes. Okay. Traditionally, most of the researchers don't understand the difference between method and methodology. Am I right? Because I have asked many researchers the difference between method and methodology, and they fail to answer. They are not clear about what is method and what is methodology. They are just using these terms, research methods and methodologies. Okay. Many people think that collecting data, so far as our research is concerned, you may be writing a thesis or you may be writing some research paper. Collecting the data or creating certain questionnaire, going in the library or asking the questions to people by preparing certain questionnaire and collecting the data. These things, or sometimes when you ask what is the methodology of your research in this thesis, then they will say that analytical methodology, interpretive methodology, analytical, interpretive, or some will say qualitative, quantitative. This kind of terms will be used by the researchers most of the times, and still they fail to understand the difference between method and methodology. Okay, cultural studies has tried to clarify this point related to method and methodology. Cultural studies says that going beyond the traditional sense of method and methodology, method means collecting data. Okay, it is a technique, okay, used by the researcher to frame the questions or collect and organize the data. So method refers to the actual field work, okay, done by the researcher, the questionnaires, the database, okay, and identifying the sources, so whether magazines, books, online sources, various kinds of sources are identified. So all these things are methods in research. So far as cultural studies perspective is concerned, these are the methods. These are not the methodologies. Methodology goes beyond this. Okay. Now, what is methodology? Methodology is basically your political and ideological position that you apply to the collected data. You understand? Methodology refers to the political position and the interpretive strategies that have been used, adopted and used by the researcher. This refers to actually political approach of the researcher. Means when you read the data, you analyze the data that has been collected by you, then that data, the collected data, needs to be evaluated, needs to be analyzed, okay, and needs to be interpreted or reinterpreted. While interpreting or reinterpreting, or while analyzing or reading and rereading of that data, in order to do this, you need to have certain analytical tools, certain frameworks, okay, certain instruments. Those instruments and frameworks must be necessarily and essentially theoretical. Okay, therefore, methodology refers to the ideological political framework of the researcher that is used to analyze that collected data. Okay, you understand? This is the difference between methods and methodology. Methods refers to the techniques that are used in the research. Okay, it is the process collecting data and all these things. But methodology is applying theoretical perspective to that collected data, applying your theoretical position, political ideological position to that collected data. Okay, this is the basic difference according to cultural studies. Okay. In the next part of our lecture, I'll be talking about certain important theories like structuralism, post-structuralism,
आपले
feminism.
ते सोशल डिपेंड केलेले
Is there any problem? We'll be talking about these theoretical perspectives and how these theoretical perspectives are important in cultural studies. Okay, we'll meet after 15 minutes. Meet. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
कसं काय काहून
अरे पार्टी वाले काय भेटले जाऊन दे तुम्हाला मंगाने सांगितलं की नाही कामत म्हणून काही करतात चालेल फक्त बोला गाडी भी नाही समजे का काय झालं बाई फक्त एकोडी ना का गंगा जरी होंदे जाते चाची वाणी आली होय
Yes. Shall we start?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All are there?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Very good.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Very nice session, sir.
Really, you understand it? You are
Yes, sir.
enjoying
Yes.
it?
Very nice, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
If you find any difficulty,
Good
any
afternoon,
problem,
sir.
you can ask in the
Good
last
afternoon, sir.
half
Yes,
an
sir.
hour.
Yes.
Okay, let's start. Uh, at the end of the first segment, I talked about the difference between methods and methodologies. And I told you that certain methodologies are used in cultural studies as analytical tools. Those analytical tools are nothing but the theoretical approaches, theoretical frameworks, which are inevitable in the study of culture, in the process of analysis of culture. See, if you want to analyze something, then you need some theoretical framework. Without the theoretical framework, please turn off your mic.
Roll number 50. Roll number 50. Please turn your mic off. Roll
Please
number
turn
5.
off your mic.
Hello. Roll number 50.
झोपायचं नाही होय
It is not expected in this class. Roll number 50. Hello.
Amol sir. Gaurav sir. Amol sir, Gaurav sir. तो roll number 50 ला mic बंद करा. roll number 50. सर उबाळे सर तुम्ही करू शकता त्याचा माईक बंद होस्ट
कसं करायचं असते?
तर त्याच्या नावावरती जा 50 आणि तिथे ते दाखवेल 3 बटन 3 बॉक्स असतील त्याला टच करा.
रोल नंबर 50 ना?
सर होस्ट को म्यूट कर सकते हैं ना, जो होस्ट को म्यूट कर सकते हैं.
Okay.
आप होस्ट है तो आप उनको म्यूट कर
But where is 50? This is 49.
ऑन द टॉप 50 इज नंबर 4 ऊपर से नंबर 4 पे होगा.
Okay. हाँ. Yes, thank you. Thank you. I was not knowing this.
होस्ट
Great.
कैन डू दैट सर.
Yeah, thank you. Means he is not allowed to speak now. And if at all he wants to ask any question, he is not allowed to ask even the question.
No, he can ask. He has to unmute himself there first.
Okay. On his own, he can unmute. Okay. Right. Thank you. We'll go ahead. Yeah. I told you that certain theoretical frameworks are needed for the analysis. That may be literary text, as we are the students of literature. I believe all of us are the students of literature. That may be Hindi, Marathi, English, whatever. So we know in order to analyze a literary text, we are expected to adopt a certain sort of theoretical framework. Without that, you cannot analyze, you cannot interpret. Okay. But see, I have seen many people who feel that theory is not needed in research. I don't understand why they are saying so. In research, literary research particularly, we don't require theory. theory has nothing to do with literary research or analysis. These kind of things are said by some people, some professors I have heard. I don't understand what research they will conduct then. Without theoretical framework, how can you conduct any research? How can you analyze the literary work of art? Because if you remove theory from your analysis, means what exactly you will be doing? You will be just re-narrating a story. For example, if you are talking or if you are working on some novelist, some novels, then what you will be doing? You will be just re-narrating the story which has been already narrated by the author in his book, and they will declare this is research. Means re-narrating the stories means research for these people, and they say that they don't require theory. Okay, then I say, if re-narrating the theory story of the book or re-narration of the story of a book is research, then why will I read that re-narration? Why will not I go for the original writing of that author? Because his writing would be better than your re-narration, na? So this is my question to these people who believe that theory is not required in literary research. But before 1960s, 1950s, it used to happen back, because you can see that certain literary theories were there, and on the basis of those literary theoretical parameters, the literary texts were being interpreted and reinterpreted. But in recent time, you can see that literary theories along with critical theories particularly are needed, and particularly in recent time you can see cultural studies and the cultural theories are very much important in even the literary studies and literary research. Okay, so which theories are important in cultural studies? This would be my concern in this segment. There are so many theories actually, like structuralism, post-structuralism, post-colonialism, or feminism, and postmodernism particularly. So I'll be talking about these theories briefly, okay, and I'll be talking about the major arguments of these theories which are absolutely and highly relevant in cultural studies. Okay. Of course, I will not be able to talk on every aspect of those theories. Only certain arguments and certain concepts from those theories will be taken for our discussion here, and then I'll try to indicate that how these theoretical arguments from selected theories are relevant in cultural studies. Okay. Cultural studies is basically, as I told you in the beginning, that it is not a pure discipline, pure and original discipline actually. It is the outcome of the study of multiple disciplines, and these thinkers found that a discipline is necessary that will encapsulate and engulf the multiple disciplines. Okay. Some scholars in recent time have declared that now the nomenclature of humanities should be changed and it should be cultural studies. Okay. Instead of using humanities and social sciences, you should say cultural studies, because cultural studies is a broader, or we can say it is the rubric of cultural studies is so wide, so broad. It is umbrella term, we can say. Under this umbrella term, you can situate all the disciplines, traditional disciplines in humanities and social sciences. So cultural studies basically derives inputs from multiple disciplines and formulates its own theoretical standpoint, its arguments, okay, its own structure, right? So, if you read that very important book by Imre Sisman and Timothy Capisi, it's a very important book, anthology of cultural theories. Okay, Anthology of Cultural Theory, it's the title of that book, that is edited by Imre Sisman and Timothy Capisi. It's a little bit costly book, but in this book you will come across all the original articles of those thinkers and scholars belonging to major schools of theory, means from formalism or structuralism to postmodernism. You will come across many important essays, the key essays belonging to all the theories, which are selected by Imre Sisman and Timothy Capisi, and they have indicated that these theoretical essays and arguments propounded in these essays are so relevant in the formulation of cultural studies or cultural theory as a discipline. Okay. See, cultural studies looks at cultural product as cultural text. Okay. Cultural text is a concept which can be interpreted, or text is, as we know very well, as structuralism also believes, that again, roll number 50 is disturbing us. Huh? Okay. Yeah, what was my point?
Theoretical aspects.
Yeah. Cultural studies believes that every cultural product is a text, right? And as you know, in structuralism and in post-structuralism as well, text is that certain phenomena which has a meaning, which is subject to interpretation, which disseminates some meaning, some message, which symbolizes something, that is text. And since that certain thing symbolizes something, suggests something, therefore it is subject to interpretation and reinterpretation. Therefore it is text. Then what can be termed as text for cultural studies? A film is a text, not just literary text. A film is a text. A painting is also a text, because paintings also give some message. Paintings also suggest something. Painting also has to say something. Painting is interpreted. Painting is reinterpreted. Painting symbolizes something. Therefore, painting is a text. In a strict sense, literary text is considered as text. And in cultural studies, you can see painting is a text, movie is a text, or film is a text. Even food item is also a text. Okay. A sports is a text. Okay. See, cricket, for example, in Indian context, cricket match or the game of cricket speaks a lot. Our emotions are associated with, though this is not an Indian game originally, but now it is fully Indian game, more than the game of England, though it was created by England, right? Originated in England, but now it is very Indian game. So many things are associated with cricket, right? And particularly if you look at India-Pakistan match, right? Then there is again a different kind of what you can say perspective to look at the cricket. So cricket here, some scholars, some sports thinkers and some journalists have declared that cricket is our religion now. Cricket is a religion for many Indians. they are madly love for cricket. Okay, so here cricket speaks a lot. Cricket gives a message. Cricket is interpreted. Cricket symbolizes something. Cricket has so many aspects. Therefore, cricket is a text for cultural studies. Then, or if cultural studies wants to analyze cricket, for example, okay, then certain theoretical aspects should be brought in to analyze cricket. Then what will look, how cultural study will treat cricket. Cultural studies will look at cricket with economic perspective. Means if India-Pakistan match is there, then how much business is done by that match? That would be the most important thing that would be analyzed by cultural studies perspective. Traditionally, people look at India-Pakistan match in or through emotional lenses, through emotional perspective. At that time only, we become very much Indian. The spirit of nationalism can be witnessed in India-Pakistan match. But there are so many aspects associated with this match. As I said, a business, right? So economic aspect is there. Then sociological aspects are there. Psychological aspects are there. Political aspects are also there. Means whether to allow this match to play, whether to, or which stadium is to be prepared for these political aspects. So any cultural text has multiple aspects, multiple connotations. This is how cultural studies look at any cultural text, right? Therefore, in order to analyze cultural text, it requires certain theoretical frameworks. Okay. If you look at structuralism particularly, as we know that structuralism believes in the process of meaning making, right? Structuralism believes in meaning of the thing in relation, in difference, right? Meaning is understood in difference, or meanings are relational. This is how structuralism believes, right? Those people who are associated with English literature and English language, they know very well how Ferdinand de Saussure, a Swiss linguist, talks about language, what language is for Saussure, and how structuralism believes in difference and relational aspect of language. Means you understand the meaning of a particular word in relation with the other words, right? For example, you understand the meaning of black when there is white. If there is no white, then there is no meaning of black. So the meaning of black depends upon the existence of white. Am I right? Every meaning is understood in relation with the other words or other meanings. Structuralism believes in this, or they have given this, the notions of signified and signifier and signified, right? Signifier and signified. Signifier means a word sound, okay, and signified means the idea behind that word or suggested by that word, that is signified. And the combination of signifier and signified is sign. So sign equal to signifier and signified. This is how the language works. This is how Ferdinand de Saussure believes. The meaning is determined in relation with the other meanings, okay, or other words, other things, okay. Structuralism talks about two important notions. One is lang and other is parole, okay. Many of you know very well, but still I am repeating in the sense, they may be knowing what exactly is lang and parole and how that is important in structuralism and in the study of language. But still, in relation with the theories which are important in culture studies, I must talk something about this lang and parole. Lang is the vast system of language, meanings, the entire system of language, that is lang. For example, if I ask you, where do you find language? Then you don't have a specific answer to this question. You cannot give a proper answer. Where is the language? Some would say that language is there in books. But my response will be, that is not the entire language. Okay. Then you will say, language is there in library. Again, my response will be, entire language doesn't exist in library also. Then where is the entire language? Full, complete language with all its words, expressions and meanings. Where do you find the entire language? I'm not talking about a particular language. I'm talking language as such. Where do you find that language? Entire language. And we don't have a proper answer of this question. Okay. Language actually is there in our unconscious. Understand? Unconscious is that certain area of our mind where, as Sigmund Freud says, he talks in some other view that unconscious comprises, or unconscious is that dark area of our psyche, okay, our mind, where so many things are buried deep down or stored. Unconscious is that territory of our mind where so many things are stored. Okay, this is how, and particularly the sexual drives or libidinal drives are stored, or the unfulfilled emotions and desires. This is how Freud speaks. This is not my concern right now. But what unconscious is, in order to tell this, I'm talking about this. But unconscious for Sigmund Freud is different, associated with libidinal drives and unfulfilled dreams and desires and wishes and trauma. But for other psychologists like Carl Gustav Jung or other psychologists particularly, unconscious is something different that goes beyond what Freud believes. For Carl Gustav Jung, unconscious is, no doubt there are these desires, libidinal drives, as Freud mentioned, but going beyond that, Jung says unconscious contains certain primordial images, okay, legends, myths, archetypes, okay, archetypes. All these things are contained in unconscious. So for Carl Gustav Jung, unconscious is that reservoir where so many things are stored, okay. In the same way, language is stored in that unconscious. Language is stored in that reservoir. Okay. So if at all anybody asks you, where do you find the entire language? Then your answer should be, and the language is found in our unconscious. Unconscious is not, as we traditionally believe, unconscious means the person, false unconscious means he loses or he loses his senses. This is not unconscious. Okay. Unconscious means that territory of your mind or reservoir of your mind where you store so many things, and as C.G. Jung says, the archetypes, the primordial images, myths, okay, archetypes, Okay. So this unconscious is very, very important. Jung says this unconscious of a person is there, and at the same time, the unconscious of a society is also there, to which he calls as collective unconscious. Okay, this unconscious is important for construction of our personality. I'll be talking about this aspect of unconscious in some other point. Here I am restricted to language only. My point here you need to understand is that our unconscious is the reservoir of the entire language. To this, structuralism calls as lang. Lang. Okay. Then another aspect or another notion, that is parole. Okay. What is parole? Parole is the selected, chosen, necessary aspect of language. Necessary in the sense means every time you need some piece of language, certain things, certain aspect of language or certain part of language. Means if lang is a entire system of language, but you don't need entire system every time. When you speak, you don't require entire language. You require some words from that entire system. When you are writing something, you don't require the entire system of language. You require only certain words, certain sentences, certain expressions. You derive those sentences and words from the entire system of language, and you use according to your convenience, according to your necessity. So that selected, chosen, specific use of language is called as parole. So these concepts of lang and parole are important in culture studies as well, right? Culture as such, if anybody asks you, where is culture? Then you cannot indicate and pinpoint that this is a culture. Culture again is not in the library, okay, not in anybody's home, not in the museum, not in any place. Actually, culture is there in our unconscious, as lang is there in our unconscious. Getting my point? So culture as a system, culture as a structure exists in our unconscious. Okay, that is the part of our mind, and everything that you call as cultural artifact, cultural product, cultural text, that is a specific, chosen, necessary part of that entire system of culture, as parole is of lang. You got this point? So that is cultural artifact. So in that restricted sense, lang means entire culture of which the location is unknown. Okay. But still, see what happens. In every family of every society or community, you find that certain cultural artifacts, certain cultural expressions, certain cultural products are passed from one generation to the another generation, handed over from one generation to the another generation. In this way, culture survives. Or as per the new generations, culture finds or culture experiences mutations. Those we call as cultural mutations. Okay. So culture is handed over from one generation to the other generation. Traditionally, we know this. But at the same time, as cultural studies believes, culture plays a pivotal role in establishing and maintaining a power, the power of a particular class, domination of a particular class. So cultural artifacts, cultural texts work as instruments in order to maintain the power of a specific class in every society, in every community. Okay. So structuralism concerned with the process of meaning making or signifying practices, process of signification. Cultural artifacts are signifying practices. Every cultural text signifies something. Okay, and that signification is controlled by a dominant class. This is how cultural studies believes. Every signification is a convenient signification of a dominant class. Therefore, you can see the changing connotations of cultural texts. In every era, you came across these changing connotations of every cultural text. That's very, very important aspect. Means you can see 50 years ago, Diwali was celebrated with a specific perspective. Okay. Now there is a change in celebration of Diwali. Diwali is not just a festival. Economic aspects are associated with Diwali. A business is associated with Diwali. Religious aspects are associated with Diwali. Okay. And certain classes are benefited with the entire enterprise of Diwali. You understand? So, changing face of Diwali. In every generation, you can see, and even the methods of celebration of Diwali have been changing continuously. So, it happens. 50 years ago, Diwali signified certain things, certain aspects. Now, after 50 years, Diwali signifies something different. So the process of signification also changes according to the methods of celebration. How methods of celebration change, in the same way, the process of signification also change. And these processes of signification of any cultural artifacts, processes of signification of any cultural text, these processes are controlled and regulated by a specific class, dominant class. This is how cultural studies looks at this process. As we can see, the meanings are controlled, the meanings are dominated, the meanings are regulated by a specific class, as structuralism also believes. Okay, and while controlling the meanings, while regulating the meanings, certain meanings are respected, privileged, and certain meanings are considered as less important or less privileged. And you can now turn to post-structuralist approach. In post-structuralism, you can see, while talking about binarism, Jacques Derrida says one side of, or he believes one side of the binary pair is respected, okay, privileged or dominant, and the other side of the same pair is less important or unprivileged or less privileged. And we can see in post-structuralism, there are so many binary pairs have been introduced in order to prove this point of domination and subordination. So what happens? Some meanings are privileged and some meanings are less privileged. Cultural studies focuses on this aspect of the process of meaning making or the practice of signification. And by deriving the inputs from post-structuralist perspective, it declares that certain dominant classes determine the meanings, control the meanings, okay, controls the meanings of language, sentences, words. In the same way, the meanings of cultural text, the meanings of cultural practices are also controlled by certain class. And exploration of this entire process of controlling the meanings, the exploration into the entire process of controlling the signifying practices is the primary concern of cultural studies project. You understand? So how cultural studies derives the arguments from structuralism and post-structuralism. Okay. See what happens. See, if you look at all these theoretical formulations, you will find that, as you see, in recent time, our educationists are talking about interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinarity. On what grounds they are talking about multidisciplinarity? the ground is that all the disciplines seem to be mixing with one another. No discipline can be studied independently and separately. Therefore, this is the time of multidisciplinary approach, right? In the same way, if you look at the theoretical frameworks or theoretical formulations and the key concerns of each and every theory, you will find that all theories have certain similar arguments. All theories have certain resembling aspects. Therefore, if you look at post-structuralist argument of relational meanings, we may say, and the process of meaning making or signifying practices, then you can have the similar kind of argument in feminism also, in post-colonial theories also, okay. And as a student of cultural studies, I found that cultural studies derives the resembling arguments from multiple theories and tries to establish its own theoretical project platform. Okay, for example, see, while talking about the signifying practice, cultural studies talks about certain examples which have been continuously discussed by feminism. For example, our parents are normally people give a doll as a toy, okay, while talking about the selection of toys for boy and girl. Normally we give dolls to girls, okay, and trucks and cars and tools, carpenter's tools or machinery tools, any kind of tools, to boys. Try to understand this. Tools or trucks signify certain things. Doll signifies certain thing, right? So how signifying practices and signifying strategies are used or treated in structuralism, in post-structuralism, and in feminism, and how these are amalgamated in cultural studies. Okay. See, a doll, actually it is a representation also. Doll represents, it's a meaning making again, or generating meaning. Doll represents softness, delicateness, okay, that requires care, right? It is feminine, okay. So the feminine aspects are signified, indicated through doll. So doll becomes a signifying aspect or a symbol that signifies tenderness, delicateness, fragility, okay. It requires care. By providing or by gifting doll to a girl child, we are providing or giving the entire patriarchal construct of feminine. You're getting? It would appear a little bit complicated, but try to understand. We don't give just a doll to our girl child. We offer or we give entire patriarchal discourse or patriarchal construct to our girl, and we try to, what we can say, accustom her, habituate her with that patriarchal construct. Means how patriarchy looks at female. The whole discourse is given to her. She doesn't know. Our girl child in the beginning doesn't understand what exactly the signifying process is there behind giving this doll. She doesn't know. She enjoys that. But unconsciously, we impose, we may say impose. Impose would be a proper word for that. We unconsciously or consciously impose entire patriarchal discursive construct to our girl child. And in this way, we start conditioning upbringing of that girl child in a specific determined feminine world. Same happens with the male child, boy child. We provide the tools, trucks, these kind of things, and we don't give him dolls. If we give doll to our boy child, there would be no problem at all. But we want to condition our boy in such a way that we give tools and cars and trucks to our boy child. See, truck, tools, these indicate the masculinity. Doll, softness, femininity, feminine aspect. And tools and trucks, masculinity, toughness. Okay. Working to give certain output. Means boys are expected to work hard in order to give certain output. Girls are expected to just care. So the aspect of caring is implied in gifting a doll to girl child. Understand? Caring is associated with girl and producing something. Output-oriented work. Toughness is associated with boy. Means at the very outset, at the very beginning of our children's life, we start conditioning them according to the patriarchal norms. Okay. So doll and tools, these are the signifying practices, symbolizing practices. And how, though doll is not a word or a language, but for cultural studies, it is a cultural text. So doll is a cultural text which speaks a lot and which has so many aspects associated with, okay, therefore it should be analyzed. It should be interpreted and reinterpreted. Okay, so anything that speaks in the same, don't take it literally, anything that suggests, anything that gives message, anything that indicates something, anything or any object that what you can say symbolizes something, that is a cultural text or that is a text for cultural studies. Therefore here doll is a cultural text. This can be interpreted, and the interpretation or after interpretation of this doll, we come across all these things that I discussed right now. Tools or truck is a cultural text in cultural studies. This can be interpreted. This can be analyzed by applying these theoretical frameworks, as I used structuralist framework and post-structuralist framework and the feministic framework, or the framework from feminism, and I tried to interpret these two things, doll and truck or tools. So this is how cultural studies works. See, cultural studies is primarily associated with how power structure and power relations play the role in human society. As I said, it's a key point of focus, key aspect of focus of cultural studies. So power structure and power relations. Everything is associated with power. Everything is associated, or within the context of power structure, everything is evaluated and analyzed by cultural studies. Okay. So a literary text is also a product of a certain power structure. This is how cultural studies believes. Therefore, in the beginning, I told you, the analysis of a literary text cannot be made in terms of its theme and characters and other aspects, literary aspects. Okay. A literary text must be viewed as a cultural product of a certain power structure. Okay, in this view or with this perspective, culture studies looks at the thing. Culture studies tries to analyze the cultural products by treating them as text, as I told you, and I discussed about cricket match. Therefore, sport is a cultural text, or it's a text for cultural studies. Nation, even the concept of nation is also a cultural text for cultural studies. Our tricolor, Tiranga, or any national flag is a text because it symbolizes certain things. It speaks certain things. It indicates and suggests certain things. Therefore, it is text. Anything that can be interpreted, that gives certain message, that symbolizes, is a text for cultural studies, and cultural studies tries to analyze that. Okay. Then I'll turn to one couple of things, couple of arguments from some theories. Particularly, I must talk about a very important notion nowadays in cultural studies. That notion is considered as so crucial, and that notion comes from, I think, Michel Foucault. Okay. People of English language and literature might have heard, they have studied Michel Foucault, because Michel Foucault every time disturbs us in our study. He has propounded so complex and complicated arguments in his many books. Okay. And Michel Foucault actually influences all postmodern debates and discourses, we may say. So how Foucault's arguments, many arguments of Foucault's and many concepts of Foucault's are actually influential in cultural studies, or in the process of analysis and exploration in cultural studies particularly. But I'll talk about discourse only, the notion of discourse, and then we will have some questions and discussion. Okay. See, usually, I have noticed that many people talk about discourse, or they use the term discourse in a very, very loose way, in a random way. They use the discourse. Many times I have seen and experienced that the discourse of something, the discourse of someone, the discourse about something, this kind of things. As we use the term culture in a very loose way and loose sense, in the same way, the term discourse is used by many people, many teachers of English, many teachers of literature particularly. But when you look at what Michel Foucault was talking or expecting in the notion of discourse, and how cultural studies receives this notion of discourse, and how it tries to implement and use in order to analyze the cultural texts, that aspect is important. So in that perspective only, I'll be talking about the notion of discourse. Discourse is that certain set of beliefs, rules, or parameters, you may say, that controls and governs and regulates some aspect of our life. You're getting? I'll try to explain this. See, for example, as Foucault also says, you declare somebody as insane or mad. On what grounds we declare somebody mad or insane? This is important question. We declare somebody as mad or insane because that person doesn't behave according to the rules of your society. Anybody who doesn't follow the rules of your society and who breaks the rules of society, or who behaves in some unusual ways, then you declare as mad or insane person, right? Means, for example, if you come across somebody walking on the street, tearing clothes, okay, or doing some unusual kind of activities, throwing stones unnecessarily, that kind of person is declared as mad or insane, right? Foucault asks that whether that person is mad, insane, or sane, that's a different thing. Foucault's point is a certain kind of set of parameters, set of rules, okay, established by our moral principles, moral behavioral norms, okay, or psychologists, okay, certain set of norms, certain set of rules and parameters that set about the behavior of a person doesn't allow somebody to call as sane if he behaves in some unusual ways. As I mentioned, as I described, if a person behaves in this kind of unusual ways, then that person is called as insane or mad, because some set of rules or parameters declares him as insane. According to those rules, that person is insane. Means a set of rules or parameters or beliefs is at work to decide whether a person is mad or sane. A set of rules, okay. This set of rules, ideas, beliefs is called as discourse. So in every field, in every sphere of our life, in our society, discourses are there. And discourses in every field, in every domain, these discourses control and regulate our life, right? See, a religious discourse by the authority like priest or some religious person, a religious discourse sets the rules of your behavior in order to enter into heaven, or otherwise you will be thrown into hell. Certain rules, the rules regarding moral behavior. If you don't follow these rules, you will be declared as immoral person. You will be condemned and you will not be allowed in heaven, right? So a certain set of rules formulated by the religious people, that set of rules is religious discourse. Okay. In corona period, we have experienced that certain rules were propounded by medical science, that you have to wash your hands, you have to use the mask, you have to maintain the social distance. All these rules of regarding corona, all these rules were the discourse, that was medical discourse. So Foucault wants to say that in every field, certain discourses are there, and these discourses control and regulate our life, okay? But these discourses in every field are the discourses constructed by the dominant class, okay? This is how Foucault believes. All these discourses are meant to control our life, the society, and these discourses are formulated, utilized by the dominant class. A certain kind of ideology is disseminated through certain cultural artifacts, cultural products, okay? Those ideological formulations become discourses, okay? So henceforth, whenever you use the concept of discourse, do not use this concept loosely or roughly. Use with this perspective as Foucault has given, okay? So anything that controls your life, governs your life, or regulates your life is a discourse. To a specific sense or to a restricted sense, this can be termed as ideology. So ideology is that certain thing that controls your life. We use the term ideology again in multiple ways, in a very loose way. In cultural studies, particularly, ideology is that certain thing that controls your life, governs your life, and regulates as well. Discourses, ideology, these are the similar things. Postmodernism speaks about this kind of aspects which have been controlling the life of the people. And postmodernism also talks about how certain discourses are respected and revered, and how other things or other discourses are again considered as not important or less important. Okay. And how cultural studies looks at these discourses again. So the important concern of cultural studies is to explore, while analyzing a cultural artifact, a cultural product, to explore into the discourses which inform these cultural facts or cultural artifacts, understand, or cultural products. Cultural studies believes that every cultural text or every cultural product is informed by certain discourses, understand, and therefore those discourses rule, and therefore these artifacts, cultural artifacts or cultural products also rule, understand, or the dominant ideology of a dominant class is executed through certain cultural artifacts or cultural products, through discourses. I hope you are understanding something. 20 minutes are remaining. I had decided to give 30 minutes at least for our question answer, but 20 minutes are still remaining. So if you have any doubt, any query, you can, or you want to suggest something, or if you want to if you want to correct me on some grounds, you can, please.
Please ask the questions, because session is open for asking the questions. If you have doubts and if you want to make clear your doubts, you can ask the question to the expert. Please. Sir, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sir, how does cultural studies are differ from the traditional literary criticism in terms of methodology and objectives?
In the beginning, actually,
You have explained, but I
yeah,
need
explain, but still try to understand that
yes.
cultural studies doesn't look at a literary text as just literary text, which is viewed in traditional sense. Okay.
Yes.
Cultural studies visits the literary text as cultural text, because literary text or literary production is one of the small aspects of cultural productions. Okay. Literature, after all, is one of the parts of culture, right? So literary production is nothing but a cultural production. And as I said, cultural studies has derived so many theoretical frameworks by drawing upon certain theories. So cultural studies tries to evaluate and analyze the literary text by applying cultural theoretical parameters which have been derived from multiple disciplines, by treating it as cultural text. So traditional literary criticism is different, because traditional literary criticism uh, depends upon the literary parameters or literary devices of analysis. Okay, but cultural studies has certain different devices of analysis which are borrowed from the theories which I briefly discussed. Actually, still there are certain theories remaining. I did not talk much about feminism, about post-colonial theory, about post-structuralism, about Marxist theory particularly. These are important grounds of discussion for cultural studies, because cultural studies derives so many inputs from these theories also. Okay, next question or next query or doubt?
Please ask the questions. Yes, you can. Your mic is open. You can ask the question. Yes, sir, please.
Sir, thank you very much for the crystal clear explanation. I was able to understand.
You are not audible. You are not audible, please.
Your voice is not coming loudly, sir. Please make it loud. What's your name? Phone number?
Unmute yourself. Unmute. Your mic is mute. Please speak now.
Hi, sir, Dr. Jalal Anand. Am I audible to you, sir?
Yes, yes, yes. Speak loudly, little loudly.
Otherwise, I will talk from my mobile.
Right. Sir,
Yes, please.
sir, thank you for the crystal clear explanation. I was able to understand the foundation of structuralism, post-structuralism, and I was also able to understand the foundation of cultural studies. My question is regarding this postmodernism. When I was reading, I was of the opinion that postmodernism celebrates differences. It celebrates the individuality.
Okay.
When it comes to the celebration of the individuality of different groups, it also becomes a celebration of the discourses. So, how does a cultural study address this particular situation, sir?
Yeah,
Because there
I
will
got
be
your
different
point.
discourses, and there will be a possibility of clash of discourses.
Possibility of?
How does cultural study address this situation, sir?
Yeah, see, I was planning to speak on this aspect also because this is very, very crucial aspect. Postmodernism actually is so important school of theory because it celebrates heterogeneity, plurality. Okay. And it is absolutely against the modernistic standpoint, particularly philosophic and theoretical standpoint of grand narratives or established by grand narratives or meta narratives, we may say. Postmodernism believes in the plural aspects of anything, right? It doesn't value something or it doesn't think of certain privileged aspects or what we can say in a traditional sense, as I said, certain classics are privileged, certain thinkers are privileged, certain narratives are considered as master narratives. Postmodernism challenges these kind of narratives or these kind of thinking processes. Okay. So the very gist of postmodernism, of celebrating pluralism or celebrating heterogeneity itself is analogous with the central argument of cultural studies. You understand? Cultural studies also focuses on plurality. Okay. Therefore, its primary concern is masses, na? Okay, masses, common people. It is not at all individuality. Individuality in that particular sense that certain class, certain caste, certain group is privileged and other major groups are neglected. This was the traditional viewpoint, and cultural studies goes against this and tries to bring those masses who are on the margins. Okay, margins. As post-structuralism believes that without margins, center cannot be determined. In the same way, postmodernism also believes in the same way. So, postmodernism challenges the notions of this centrality of the center and tries to bring the margins. But the difference is that there is no specific end in postmodernism, right? Postmodernism doesn't believe in specific ends. It is open-ended. It is not fixed-ended, right? So postmodernism and cultural studies speak in the same voice, speak in the same tone in order to analyze the texts. Okay. As cultural studies adopts the methodology of interpretation and analysis of a text, in the same way, postmodernism also, or rather I'll say that cultural studies derives the postmodern techniques of analysis because those techniques are analogous and similar techniques of analysis of a text. So they are not different at all. I hope you got the answer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Things are very clear, sir.
Any other questions? Please, we have only 10 minutes remain.
Sir, can I ask a question?
Yes,
Please.
please. You can.
Okay.
Sir is listening. You can ask question directly.
All right. Thank you for the time. Sir, I want to know in what ways do literature teachers
First, tell
employ?
your name, madam. First, tell your name.
My name is Dr. Teja Sanyo KJ. I'm currently
Okay.
teaching at St. Joseph's College Autonomous, Jakhama, Nagaland.
Okay.
My question is, in what ways do literature teachers employ discourse strategies to enhance interpretation and also classroom engagement?
Please speak loudly. I didn't get you.
Okay.
Your voice is not coming clear, madam. Please make it loud.
Okay. In what ways do literature teachers employ discourse strategies to enhance interpretation and also classroom engagement?
Okay, it's a very difficult question actually. It depends upon what sort of political situations are there in your area. Okay, as I said, cultural studies is primarily a political ideological position. Okay, if you talk about the discourses which are prevalent, and as I said, in postmodernist debate and discussion, and in cultural studies discussions also, you come across the notion of discourse as dominant. Discourse, as I mentioned and discussed right now, discourse is that certain thing that dominates and controls and governs your life, our life, or the society. Okay, and if you want to use the discourses in classroom or for the enhancement of your teaching, then you will have to talk about how to subvert the discourses. Okay, how discourses are harmful, how discourses are dominant, how discourses deny or what you can say, neglect the identities of the masses. Okay, so you will have to ask the questions through the particular discourse. Understand? So you will have to decide the strategy of dealing with discourse in classrooms. But the most important thing is that our students need to be introduced with all these aspects that are discussed by theories and particularly cultural theories. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for your response.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other? If there is no question, then we will close the session.
So may I, sir?
Thank you.
Yes, please. Tell your name and your area also.
Yes, sir. Sir, I'm Dr. Shilpa Athole from Gondwana University, Gadchiroli. And
sound
my
not
question is,
coming
sir,
clear.
Speak
first of all, I
loudly.
would like to express my
Vaibhav, keep quiet.
appreciation that you have.
You're not properly audible, ma'am. Please speak loudly.
Yes, sir. I think some network issue is there.
Now you are audible.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for delivering such a wonderful and insightful
Thank
session
you.
on cultural studies. Yes, sir.
Sir,
My
one
question is
question
that,
is there.
Okay.
sir, you have said that in cultural studies, any literary text is considered as a cultural product.
Yeah.
So, do we satisfy the phenomenon that art is for art's sake? Because definitely in cultural studies, we look at it as literature as art for life's sake or society's sake. But when we say that literary texts are only the cultural products, so do we satisfy the phenomenon that says that art for art's sake?
Okay. See, all of us, the teachers of literature, in the every beginning of every academic year in our class, in the class of literature particularly. In the very initial lectures, we say one sentence. That is, literature is the mirror of society. Am I right? We use this statement. We use this sentence. All the teachers.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. We use this sentence that literature is the mirror of society. Okay. But we don't explain this and we don't go further. See, if literature is the mirror of society, then the first and foremost thing is, and the prerequisite is, to study the society. Right? Unless and until you study the society, how can you study literature? Because literature is mirror of society. So the primary condition is understanding the society. Right? Now, on this background, you think about that argument that literature for literature's sake or art for art's sake. Okay, you think about this in this particular context that I have made now. I think you got the answer of your question, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Another?
Sir, my question, sir, can I ask, one question?
Please.
Sir, what is the minor difference between cultural studies and cultural activities?
See, cultural studies, as I said, a discipline, a theoretical discipline particularly, that is meant to analyze, interpret cultural activities, cultural artifacts, cultural products. Means cultural products and cultural texts, as I discussed, are there, but interpretation of those texts, not in the traditional sense, okay, interpretation of those texts by using the parameters and theoretical arguments established by cultural studies. So that interpretation is important. This is the difference. Cultural activity is different thing, and how that activity is interpreted and analyzed by cultural studies, these are two different things. But the role of cultural studies in the whole process of interpretation and reinterpretation and analysis is so important. That is insightful, right?
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Any questions again? If there is no question, then I will.
Yeah, we'll stop here. Thank you for listening patiently, and thank you for participating in discussion as well. Thank you very much, one and all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Roll number 24, vote of thanks, please.
आवाज येतोय सर?
हाँ येतोय बोला.
नमस्ते, मैं डॉक्टर शिला महादुगुले.
उबाले सर,
मेरा
मेरा
रोल
नंबर देख रहा था. नहीं शायद सर गए क्या? झाकडे सर.
थँक्स करा, काय हरकत नाही.
नाही सर आहेत की.
सर वोट ऑफ थँक्स करा, आहेत सर म्हणलं जॉईन.
हेलो, आवाज येतोय सर?
यस मैम,
वोट ऑफ थँक्स करा.
नमस्ते, मैं डॉक्टर शिला महादुगुले. मेरा रोल नंबर 24 है. आदरणीय अध्यक्ष, माननीय निर्देशक HRDC, आज के हमारे प्रमुख वक्ता प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर आनंद कुमार उबाले सर तथा उपस्थित सभी विद्वान प्रतिभागीगण, आज के इस अत्यंत ज्ञानवर्धक और प्रेरणादायी सत्र के समापन अवसर पर मैं हृदय की गहराई से अपना आभार व्यक्त करती हूँ. सबसे पहले मैं हमारे प्रमुख वक्ता प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर आनंद कुमार उबाले सर जो डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब आम्बेडकर मराठवाड़ा विश्वविद्यालय के अंग्रेजी विभागाध्यक्ष है, उनके प्रति विशेष धन्यवाद ज्ञापित करती हूँ. आपने अपने व्यापक अध्ययन, शोधपरक दृष्टिकोण और प्रभावशाली प्रस्तुतिकरण के माध्यम से विषय को अत्यंत सरल, प्रासंगिक और विचारोचित ढंग से प्रस्तुत किया. आपके व्याख्यान ने हमें विषय की गहराई से परिचित कराया और शिक्षण तथा शोध के नवीन आयामों पर गंभीर चिंतन करने की प्रेरणा दी. आपकी विद्वत्ता, अनुभव और मार्गदर्शन से हम सभी प्रतिभागियों को अपने शैक्षणिक दायित्वों को और अधिक सशक्त रूप में निभाने की प्रेरणा प्राप्त हुई है. इसके लिए हम आपके हृदय से आभारी हैं. मैं HRDC के माननीय निर्देशक एवं आयोजक समिति के सभी सदस्यों का भी हार्दिक धन्यवाद करती हूँ, जिसने कुशल नियोजन और सतत प्रयासों से यह सत्र सफलतापूर्वक संपन्न हो सका. साथ ही सभी प्रतिभागी साथियों का भी धन्यवाद, जिन्होंने अपनी सक्रिय सहभागिता, जिज्ञासा और विचार विमर्श से इस सत्र को अत्यंत सार्थक और संवादपूर्ण बनाया। इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ मैं पुनः हमारे माननीय वक्ता एवं उपस्थित सभी विद्वान जनों के प्रति कृतज्ञता प्रकट करती हूँ। धन्यवाद।
सर मुझे एक डाउट है यहाँ पर, एक और एक रोल नंबर था जिन्होंने नंबर 24 डाला था,
हाँ
डॉक्टर हरिदास आखरे। तो
हाँ
आप
हाँ
लोगों में कुछ कंफ्यूजन होगा तो जरा क्लियर कर लीजिए।
यस
बाकी अभी
सर।
तो
हाँ ठीक है
आप, हरिदास सर आपका रोल नंबर क्या है?
61 है सर मेरा।
फिर 24 क्यों करके रखा है आपने?
नहीं नहीं 24 तो गलती से लिखा है सर, वो 61 है,
उसको
61
हटाओ।
वो
हाँ
मैं करेक्ट करता सर।
ये
नहीं 61 है सर, 61।
ठीक है सर, अभी शायद फिर हम कल मिलते हैं सुबह। ओके, बाय बाय ऑल।
कल सुबह का
कल छुट्टी है ना?
उद्या नाही सोमवारी आता
हाँ सोमवारी सोमवारी सोमवारी, येस।
सोमवारी
सोमवारला भेटू सर, सोमवारला.
हा सोमवारी
मंडे.
आपलं जे इंट्रोडक्शन करणार आहे त्यांनी मला सांगून ठेवा, त्यांना बायोडेटा पाठवून देतो मॅडमचा.
सर
हो
बायोडेटा
सर,
ग्रुपवरती, सर मी काय म्हणतो, बायोडेटा ग्रुपवरती पाठवा ना तुम्ही, इंडिव्हिज्युअल नका पाठवा, म्हणजे आम्हाला पण बघता येईल बायोडेटा.
सर भारती
ते
गोरे मॅडम तो
व्हॉट्सअपच आहेत
बायोडाटा
ना मग.
हॅलो,
मैं तो
हा
उपलब्ध है सर
कोण
बायोडाटा.
कोण आहे, रोल नंबर सांगा. हा ठीक आहे, मी पाठवून देतो, ग्रुपवर टाकतो.
ग्रुपवरतीच टाकत ना सर, म्हणजे आम्हाला सगळ्यांना माहित राहील ना.
बरं ठीक आहे,
चालेल
ठीक
चालेल
आहे.
सर.
झालं ना, समजलं ना सगळ्यांना?
येस येस येस, ठीक.
हो सर एकदम
बऱ्यापैकी समजलं ना सगळ्यांना?
हो
हो
सर
सर, हो खूप छान, खूप छान सर.
प्रतिक्रिया आपल्यासाठी खूप इम्पॉर्टंट असतात, त्याच्यामुळे तुम्ही शेवटच्या क्वेश्चन आन्सर सेक्शन मध्ये भाग घेत जा, तुमचे डाऊट विचारत जा आणि डाऊट क्लिअर करून घेत जा. त्याच्यामुळे सेशन
हो
अजून
सर.
खुलतं. त्याच्यामुळे तुम्ही शेवटी ऍक्टिव्ह पार्टिसिपेंट राहत जा. तुमचे प्रश्न तुम्ही ते जेव्हा एक्सपर्ट जेव्हा लेक्चर देतात तेव्हाच काढून शेवटी विचारत जा.
हो सर, हो हो नक्की.
ओके,
आजही विचारत आहे प्रश्न.
क्लोज करायचं का सेशन?
हो सर,
हो
चालेल.
सर.